Meeting will come to order. We welcome you to the April 14th work session. Tonight, leading us in pledge will be Deputy Nelson.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deputy. Okay. All right. Everybody's had an opportunity to look over the agenda. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Hearing none, the same for approval of the consent agenda. Any questions or thoughts?
We got to talk about this just a little before the meeting came to order, and I was just pointing out that some of the same people that appear on our school salary supplements, item E, also appear as non-faculty volunteer coaches. And so in one line we refer to them as volunteers, on another line we refer to supplements that they're receiving from supporting parents and booster organizations, and we appreciate the community's involvement. But make no mistake, these people are fingerprinted and background checks. That's why they appear there as non-faculty volunteers that are checked and approved. The amount of time that some of these individuals spend with our students is perhaps more than they spend with their chemistry teacher, and as such, we take it seriously when we approve them.
Of course, we'll have probably one of the fun things we get to do is recognize state champions, which is always
more than one area this time.
It's several alphabet listing this time, so that's good. And of course, the emergency medical responder course will be a spotlight. And then, I guess number 10, do you want to talk about that, Mr. Odom?
This is where St. Thomas partners with us for a site. They come in and set up the mobile unit. Kathy Farrell has been here and spoken to the board before. And I believe she's coming again, I said Thursday evening. But this is for, they come in, and adults and can be students too that need health services that may not financially be able to receive those services. This is what this unit does. So you can look over the memorandum of understanding, but it's pretty much the same, I think, Ms. McLeod, it's been before, isn't it, that we've had in prior years?
I could not get my tab to open. Did the tab say how many individuals they're serving or served in the past year? Or
I read it today, but I don't think it said how many were served. She'll tell us that. I'm sure she'll be glad to,
Okay,
unless
good.
she'll tell us that.
Okay.
It's a fairly substantial number that they do around, Rutherford County in doing that.
Okay. And then Mr. Tackett on number 11.
Number 11, Mr. Tim Tackett, Athletic Director, and Brad Rolling, Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance and Rutherford County Schools Trainer, have addressed the importance of CPR and first aid certification for coaches and sponsors in our system. And this will be a motion to approve the board require 50% of each athletic or activity staff be certified both in CPR and first aid as of August 1st, 2015. By June 1st, 2016, all members of the athletic activity staffs would be required to be certified in both. These courses are offered at no cost to Rutherford County Schools school station, and athletics will be defined as Tennessee middle school, Tennessee high school sanctioned sports, including swimming. activities would be defined as marching band and junior ROTC. And this will be taught by our nurses. That's why there's not another cost related to that. They do Red Cross and CPR training. They do it to people in our schools. And this is just targeting, and Mr. Tackett thought it'd be a good idea, and I agreed with him, that we make sure that there are people that's on the athletic fields with our students have this skill, this certification. So I certainly think it's a good idea.
Especially when we get to the all members, because if only 50%, who knows who's going to be where? So once everyone is certified, then there's total coverage.
The total number that had to be trained, he thought we might be best to break it up,
Sure.
not at one time simply. And I think you're going to find that a good number of them already trained. This is going to simply be another time. You've been a coach, y'all did training
Yes.
many years ago in this, so I don't think we're behind as much as we might be.
On Thursday, you may give Mr. Tackett a heads up. I'm going to ask if the automatic electronic defibrillator is part of that first aid training that we saw previously with one of our SROs being used very effectively. Great.
Deputy Nelson's probably been involved at that at Stewart's Creek also, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
And my understanding is
First responders.
that device will only work if it needs to work. That unless the heart needs to be shocked, it won't shock. Right.
And they do training as well as situations not to use that device. For example, if there's water on the ground, different things like that, different safety precautions that you need to take before you keep you from hurting yourself and others. There's a larger aspect of that training. We used to do that at the school where we were at. All administrators went through that.
Excellent.
Well,
Number 12 is a special courses request. Instruction Department is requesting permission to make an application to offer credit for the following career and technical education special courses under the following guidelines. That's at Rule 521.3.052A. Local systems may offer special courses not listed in 521.3.06 on an experimental basis. The Commissioner of Education must approve each course in advance each year. After 3 years, the course may become permanent part of the local school program upon approval by the State Board of Education. After 3 years, the special course request must be resubmitted if the teacher listed in the application changes. This is Introduction to Audio Production, Stewart's Creek High, Audio Recording, Stewart's Creek High, and Event Audio, Stewart's Creek High. And the motion will be to approve Rutherford County making application for new CTE special courses to be offered in the named school in the 2015-16 as presented. Let me kind of explain something if I can here. We built Stewart's Creek High with these courses listed in the state CTE program. They took them out this year. They don't list them because it's not that widespread across the state. So in order to get our kids the credit and continue the program, we're going to have to do it as a special course. The CTE changes annually. And right, Mr. Esty said that they listed, so that's what it is. I was actually with Dr. McPhee Friday night and told him I'd like to take him to Stewart's Creek sometime to see this because of their recording program and their television program. And he told me, we've got the big van with all of this on it. He said, I'd love to go and see it, and we might be able to partner on some things to look at. So I'll try to work out a time to get him down there. And Ms. Michaels, he did tell me to contact him sometime. We'd try to make a trip and let him look at it and see how they might partner even further with Stewart's Creek.
Excellent.
13 is Textbook Adoption Report, ED 5099, Textbook Certificate of Adoption Report, ED 2153. School systems are required to submit textbook adoptions annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education. All textbooks are adopted on a 6-year cycle. The local textbook adoption report shows newly adopted textbooks for 2015, and textbook adoption includes the K-12 math. The motion is to approve the textbook adoption report ED 5099 and certificate of adoption report ED 2153 as presented. And let me kind of explain where we, this is a follow-up. I believe it was December, late November or December. If you remember, you approved committees to review math textbooks. We said at that time, because the standards are not settled, that we might be better off to wait until we see where the state, what direction they're going to move with standards, so that when you adopt a textbook, it might better align with whatever standards are there. In order to get our monies, we must adopt something. So the committee met and voted unanimously, and you had committees for the high school and the elementary and the middle. You got actually 3 different groups. And each group, and they voted unanimously, let's adopt them all. And so what we'll do is we'll come back to you when we get a better look at the standards. Maybe this, we'll have to do something this next fall, get a better look at the standards. We'll come back to you with specific books, again, to finish it out. But to get our monies, we've got to adopt something. So you're just doing what many other school districts are doing in the state, adopting them all right now. And my guess is that some of these textbook publishers also probably put out revised editions, because when they print their textbooks, they kind of go around the country, and different states have different adoption cycles and that sort of thing. So you're going to be revisiting this, or whatever we actually choose, probably later on this fall. Also, this next school year, I believe, is career and technical education books. So what Jeff Sandvig is doing is taking the monies from this year and rolling it forward. We talked about this in budget, and he talked about it the other night, rolling it forward as part of the unappropriated and putting it back in the textbook thing so we can get those math textbooks. Plus, then we'll put some in there for the career and technical education, which is not as expensive, because in many of those cases, you adopt classroom sets rather than sending the books home if you're teaching a career and technical education class. So this is a follow-up on our November, December 11th. Okay.
14, and we,
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Will we still use the same committees when we reconsider?
You must, and remember, the board had to approve them. There's some parents on it, there's
Right.
teachers on it, and there's others. Yes, they are approved for that cycle, for that book and that cycle.
Okay, ordinarily, this vote and this action right here
We've been finishing.
would have been the end of that cycle. I don't want to overcomplicate this, and I understand exactly the intent that you're wanting to do. Is there any reason for this to include language that says that the board will revisit or subject to the board's revision later in 2015?
That would be fine if you want to add that, or we can put it in as a motion, because individual books will be brought back. What we're doing here is just simply trying to meet the state requirement and send it in on that form, which is a table.
The list of books that you have there has every textbook listed, so therefore, we could not physically purchase every textbook there, so that's kind of a given.
So the purchase would come back as another.
We
Yes.
would come back.
That's what we're
as
saying.
purchase
That's
an adoption. We're adopting everything but purchasing nothing. So in order for us to purchase something, we have to bring all of that back,
okay. That's sufficient.
and that's a given.
I'm satisfied with that.
We have a nice book to go with number 14.
Mr. Clardy, I think, is prepared to talk to you about this one, the auxiliary building roof report. He can tell you, if you want to know tonight, how many square feet we have in auxiliary buildings and how many and that sort of thing. Whatever y'all want it.
What's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to do that tonight or wait till Thursday? I think we're doing that tonight if you're prepared, Mr. Clark.
That's great. Y'all mind if I do it from here?
I'm good with that if it pleases the board, and I believe it does please the board, so.
Mr. Dan Sinclair with Consolidated Roofing Inspection put this together for us. And this has most of the auxiliary buildings. I noticed that he's missed 3. Paula brought up one, and that's the couple that are over here at the maintenance building, and then the other larger building outside behind the maintenance. So there's 246 in the booklet, and
246.
that will make it 249 that we have. That consists of approximately 240,000 square feet of auxiliary buildings that the system has. Some of these auxiliary buildings were included when the schools were built, for some of the ticket booths and those types of things. But there's a lot of them that have been added through the years. For instance, just the Oakland multipurpose building that's out there, the practice building, that is one of those things now that we have, that we now own. So that goes to our list. And most of these buildings are not accounted for in any budget that we have for upkeep or any of those things. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. There are a lot of schools that are contributing to the upkeep of those buildings. I know Riverdale just put a new roof on a couple buildings down there recently. So at some point, these will become an issue on our budgeting for roofing and those types of things. I just mainly wanted to make the board aware of all these buildings, and you've got a list of them you can look at for the schools in your own district or whatever. And with that, that's really all I have. I'll take some questions if you have any questions.
Question I got, Mr. Carty. I'm looking at some of these big metal buildings, just like you're talking about Oakland Dale, the Blackman Middle Wrestling, some of those aluminum structures like that. I think that would probably be something that you'll take care of, I guess, on the big ones.
We currently fix the leaks in those or whatever we need to do, but we have, at this point, we haven't included any of those in our capital improvements project, and at some point, we'll probably have to start doing that. And the current capital improvements money now, I know the board has discussed this a few times about getting some more cents of the tax rate added to that, and we're going to start getting more behind, and we're going to gain momentum toward being behind if we don't get more money. And this is just kind of part of the equation that would be figured in on that. But we will take care of those.
That's my whole reason for it, bringing it up is, if you don't have it in there, you need to put it in there. Just plan on putting it in there, and I guess we'll deal with it when we have to, but, I guess some of these little smaller buildings, shingle roofs and stuff like that, is that the same way, or the Booster Club taking care of a lot of those?
Occasionally, we'll have the Booster Club take care of some of them, but if they don't, then we have to do it. And of course, we got the 145 portables out there that we're currently taking care of also, which puts more onto the equation. So we normally just do whatever we have to do to keep everything in good shape and keep it in working order.
Are all these buildings being utilized? Are all the buildings being utilized
Yes. Th- there's some buildings that are mainly just storage for recreation or athletic equipment, those types of things.
Do we have a separate designation for these type buildings when we talk about the total square footage of what we have? Is it, this is this kind of square footage and this is a separate level of square footage? Is this counted in our facilities right now?
No, it's not. We currently have our school buildings that house students is approaching 7 million square feet, and this would be another 250,000 square feet added to that.
Would it be your plan to continue to keep those two numbers separated?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think that's important because when we talk about utilization and we talk about, when people want to come in and audit our square footage per student and whether or not we have any surplus area or anything like that, it's outstanding that we account for all of this and have knowledge of all of it, but to keep it specifically separated from the structures that are student involved, I think that's critically important that we not get dinged for having surplus space.
Yes, and it's just currently, of course, if you get a storm or whatever, it takes a roof out of an auxiliary building. With the insurance having $100,000 deductible, then we usually have to go put that on out of maintenance or whatever. So you can get dinged for $5,000 here and $5,000 there and $10,000 here, and the insurance I think that's per each occurrence. So unless you have over $100,000, you can have a roof that has $200,000 worth of damage or building, and you only get paid $100,000. So the other $100,000 has to come out of the general fund.
Anybody else? If you think of anything else between tonight and Thursday, get something to look at. Number 15, do we just need to refer everybody to Ms. McLeod if they have questions?
Right, you have two packets, I think, in your tonight for you to review before Thursday, I believe. Two appeals to you from the Disciplinary Hearing Authority.
And number 16, we talked about at length the last time we were together, and I think everybody received an update as far as options that will be presented by the insurance committee on Thursday night to the commission, and it'll be up to the commission at that point to take one of those options or to come up with something else.
And you have a copy of that also in your folder.
So I don't know if there needs to be any more conversation. Of course, if you want to talk, this is the opportunity, but the other option is to share your opinion with our commissioners or your commissioner in particular.
I'll just make a comment, Mr. Blair, on, I take it probably what the committee is looking at is proposal 2. Basically, for proposal 3, what's disturbing about proposal 3, you start talking employees with $322 more. Somebody's gonna be in the hole. Talk about employees, so it's,
That came out of budget and finance, and they did, number 2 there is it came out of the insurance committee. And then when it came to budget and finance, they stripped off the one that was the third one and told them to add that one, just for comparison purposes.
I hope that's all it's for. But I mean, it doesn't make a lick of sense. And I understand numbers. You got cafeteria worker out here or whatever, and they're carrying the insurance, both of them, like I said, you give them $322 a month. Like I said, they won't go on those, somebody's going.
For our employees, when you talk about, you're talking about 2.6% raise or so like that, and you take what they'll be their raise, if they have to pay this in the insurance, they were talking about the other night, how many of those are gonna come out in the hole? Those people that are making 20-something thousand, 30,000, they're gonna come out with less money than they have this year, is the thing that you worry about.
And just to follow, and I think this has been clarified, but just to be sure, if the option 3, if I'm reading that correctly, then 2, that premium increase would be passed on to any employees with a spouse on the plan, whether they would fall into that category in 2 of having access to their own employer group plans or even not. In other words, if this were still the only choice that they had for that spouse is our insurance, they would still get tagged with that
That
margin increase.
independent, if you, mind, if, did I understand that right, Ms. Barnes, that if it's a single parent with dependents, they would also get that, in option proposal 3?
So that impacts a lot more lives and pocketbooks than option 2.
Well, and also it doesn't do anything for next year and the subsequent years too. It leaves us open for those dramatic increases on down the road too. Thank you, ma'am.
We were present for that meeting. I'm just going to pass this along. There was considerable discussion, I'd say about an hour and 10 minutes or so, and it was painful, much like it was here last week. And I think the reason, I'm just really just kind of giving you some observations here. The budget committee brought up many of the things that, probably everything that we brought up last week. About everybody here. Somebody spoke to it the other night, and the insurance department had watched our meeting and referred to it at least twice during their meeting. And I'm sorry that Ms. Barnes helped me out. That lady's name is Stinson Street. I apologize to her on the air. She evidently had watched our meeting. And I say it was painful because, and I think at least 2 of them spoke to this, and it was said here too that there was a number of different solutions and possibilities, and all of them were bad. It was just picking out the one that was not as bad as the other 2 or 3. And they also did something else that's really fairly rare. They forwarded it to the commission on Thursday night with no recommendation. And they hardly ever do that. They almost always make a recommendation. And the reason that they did not, and I think this is fairly obvious, they didn't know what to do either. And I think it's fair to say that we didn't know what to do and still don't know. And so they're going to hammer it out on the floor, I guess. They also said that they had plenty of calls. She said that, Ms. Street said that, and the commissioner said that plenty of people had called them and had discussed these issues with them. And finally, Mayor Burgess kind of ended the discussion and stated that this is going to take 10 cents on the tax rate or some part of that to pay for it, which kind of goes back to what Mr. Sandvik said, that this is a painful but necessary financial decision. Now, I'm giving you my observations, and you can watch it on television. Mr. Blair was there, Mr. Holliday was there, Mr. Odom was there, Mr. Clardy, Mr. Sandvik. So this is, I would say one other thing, it's possible on Thursday night that they will not reach a decision. It's possible. And they may forward it ahead and table it for 1 month, but they probably will pass something. I would think they probably would. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Anybody else before we move on?
I think the one thing in conversation with Mr. Odom that we have served, and the debate in the Budget Committee and the debate that will come in the County Commission, the coverage that our local media has given this, our employees will not be caught off guard by this. It has dusted up enough discussion and debate that our employees are informed about what was clearly expressed by the chairman and those that serve on the insurance committee, that this was carefully and dramatically debated in the insurance committee. And then it has risen to the next level, and it has been emotionally debated here at our board. And then again, we saw it at the Budget Committee. And in so doing, we have at least served the public to make them aware that this is a serious matter. It is an issue that has tentacles that go far beyond our county, beyond our state. It is subject to the state of insurance in our nation. And again, we come back to none of the possible solutions are good ones. And in that regard, I hope our constituents can respect the careful consideration that we've given this and our genuine effort for their best interest.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. And it's certainly been a huge concern.
Well, Ms. Barnes forwarded this to all of our employees, so you can have over 4,000 that know what will be considered Thursday evening, at least on the front end. You know, so our people, we've tried to keep them abreast of what's happening, and I think that's part of our job.
Indeed.
Did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd be curious to know if Ms. Barnes has had feedback from employees. I'm sure she probably has, and just kind of sharing a general idea with the board as to what she's hearing and what's the sense that you're getting from the feedback.
This morning I sent it out, and I actually have only heard back from about 10 to 12 employees. The primary question was, will my husband still be, or my spouse still be covered if he doesn't have insurance or she doesn't have insurance at their workplace? And that's the one confusing point that isn't repeated, but I don't think people have been into it deeply enough to understand that.
Okay.
So once we say that to them, once I respond, they say, okay, then I understand.
The answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you can say that.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, Ms. Barnes. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Hodge, Thursday night, the General Assembly report? Is that
If you don't mind, I talked to Mr. Odom this morning, and he got some information from TOS on what's going, I guess the final, the bills that are out there going through this week and everything. And I asked Mr. Odom, because he's got a better pulse for a lot of this stuff than I do. I can read over it and just get aggravated looking at it, but I asked Mr. Odom to highlight for the board the ones that he thought really impacted us, and I just passed it out to the board now, and let the board, look over it next day or so, and we discuss it Thursday night. It just it still amazes me if you sit there and look at all the stuff dealing with charter schools. And I had a conversation with one of the legislators the week before last. He tried to tell me that charter schools operate on a whole lot tougher rules than we do. Well, what brought the conversation up, I told them they don't play by the same rules we do. And if you sit here and look at some of these bills right here, what they're allowing charter schools to do.
Yes, sir.
They're more or less pushing the issues where they don't play by the same rules. they, you know, the ones that are failing, they're not gonna let fail. And, I guess one thing caught my eye is the insurance, for example. Allowing them to pretty well do what they want to on that. And, you know, that's the stuff that's aggravating, I guess from a school board standpoint. You know, I can put up with it as long as everybody's playing by the same rules.
Yes, sir.
And, it's not happening, that's where I have a real problem with it. But, you know, I just hope each board member takes a look at it and, you know, you can look, see who's sponsoring the bill, stuff like that, get a good idea also who's involved with a lot of this stuff. So we'll discuss it Thursday night if anybody has any, you know, feeling for it.
Thank you for the information, and I'm sure we'll have some questions. Mr. Young?
The vouchers that will be voted on tomorrow, right? Under one
I think
bill.
so, that's what I thought.
So I mean, I would encourage us still to contact those guys and let them know. I've already contacted them, emailed them, talked to one legislator Saturday night, and, you know, they're basically saying it's a done deal. I guess they know, but
Yes, sir.
we still need to reach out to them. And my challenge is if we're improving on the state report card, and we're doing all this without vouchers, why do we need them now? You know, and that's the question we need to be asking these legislators, is where's your justification for it? If you can't justify it, don't do something just to be doing it. There needs to be a reason for it. So,
Yes, sir.
You received a report, I think came through TSBA, but a study that had been done out of our state that looked at charters and vouchers, primarily vouchers across the country. And there's not been a statistical connection of school improvement connected to places that did vouchers programs. It was an interesting thing. It was one from Lee Harrell, I believe that one was, but it wasn't done by him. It came from a study somewhere else. So the bills that you see here, of course, this is the first year of that biennial, the 2 years. So there's a number of bills here that are simply going to be taken up first thing next year. You saw it was rolled to 2016. And very often, even those that are on notice and off notice, I mean, that sort of thing, since it is a 2-year cycle, they can pop right back up next year too. You know, if the legislature just doesn't take it away. So almost, unless it was outright defeated, it can come back this year or mostly next year on some of those.
They boomerang, don't they?
They do.
We'll talk about that some more Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask the director, or any of you really, in any of these bills, and I'm really referring to vouchers here, does the money raised and spent, on people changing schools and whatever, does that money cross county lines, go from one county to another?
My understanding, when they were considering the one for special education, that it possibly could. That was what they told us. Now, you may have heard differently, but if you went to, it was Davidson County, if it had a place that you wanted to place your child's special program or something like that, technically, is not supposed to apply to us initially, what our legislators are saying, but is my understanding, yes, if it does pass, that it could. So your Rutherford County taxpayers, of course, the child could still live in Rutherford County, might go somewhere for a special program.
Now, that would, I don't know, that is just so horribly unfair. And we would be penalized, and Mr. Holliday's made this point 3 or 4 times in the short time I've been on the board. We'll be penalized for doing a great job. And I'll say one other thing. I know, Mr. Barry, you're ready to get to the next thing, and I am too. We can discuss this another time. But if that happens and the money goes somewhere else, then to support our programs, we, the county commission, has to replace that money or cut services, what we do for students, drastically, or some combination of those two things. It has to.
Yes.
All right? And if the answer to that is higher taxes, it'll make this 10 cents that the mayor was talking about with the insurance look pretty pitiful when we start raising money to replace that. And we had a letter in the paper, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, a lady wrote in, and she had really a very good letter. I disagreed with almost all of it, but she had a very good letter. Anyway, but somewhere down in there, she buried it. This wasn't going to cost any money. That it was going to be just fine. Well, she is absolutely dead wrong. It's going to cost her more money and every other taxpayer. Okay, I'm shutting up now.
Oh, good points, well taken. Thank you for sharing. We'll move on to, will there be some clarity probably between now and Thursday night with either the
There will
federal
be, and the only
legislation?
thing that I'll share this evening is, please stay informed, because the one thing that Chairman Alexander of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee said today was, by Thursday night, he wants this out of his committee, and it'll be heading to the Senate floor. And so, yes, we'll talk about it some more on Thursday evening, and all of those votes may not be in because he may still be in session, but he will not gavel the end of that session Thursday night until there's an up or down vote going out of his committee. That was his pledge today as they started that debate. There's a lot of conversation about that, but be aware that almost all of the controversial topics are coming up by amendment. They're not in the draft of his legislation. He specifically has set it up to where those issues of testing, accountability, Title I portability, those things are going to go in by amendment, and he has done that so we know exactly who introduced it, who voted for it, who voted against it, and why it's there. And so those specific items will have specific elected officials to tie them back to. I think it's good statesmanship on his part. We'll see how that goes, but it's something to keep in the background, on your news feed as you go through the days.
And maybe we'll know more Thursday.
Indeed.
We'll move on to general discussion. Would like to remind everybody that the national anthem performance, Ms. Michaels, thank you for putting that together. That came about from a meeting Ms. Brenda Gregory, who's the choral director at Siegel High School, when they performed at the NSBA conference that we recently attended. And Ms. Gregory just mentioned that we hadn't had an opportunity to have the All-State and the All-Mid-State choral members together. So Ms. Michaels made that happen, and I think it'll be an outstanding presentation. So again, thank you. Any general discussion tonight? Looks like Thursday will be a full meeting. Hearing none, we will see you back here at 5 o'clock Thursday. We stand adjourned.